What's going on, everybody? My name is Shawn Daniell, and as I do in all my videos, let me first start this off by saying that I am not a counselor. I do not counsel. I am not licensed or accredited to counsel. However, if there's anything I can do to help you out in your recovery, please feel free to reach out. I would be more than willing to help or guide you in the right direction if I can. Um, in saying that, so I I was a drug addict for 25 years, probably 25 plus years. We just rounded off to 25. But I've been in recovery for 3 years. I have seen a lot of both sides of the spectrum when it comes to addiction and addiction recovery. And basically, what I'm trying to do here is I'm trying to take my life experience, things that I have learned personally through experience out there and through my research and my views, my beliefs, my opinions, and I'm trying to share it with y'all in hopes of creating a broader understanding of what addicts go through, and also to help bridge the gap between families and addicts. Um, because I'm a huge believer in support systems. I believe that people with good and healthy support systems tend to be able to put this disease into remission and have a better quality of life versus those who have to do this solo. In saying that, I want to get started. Today, I want to talk about uh, control and forced recovery. It's a very controversial topic, but it's one that I have a very strong belief in that you can't force recovery on anybody. You can't control recovery. Um, the reason for that is if history has shown us anything in life, it has shown that control breeds chaos. Man's desire to control, man's desire to force his will on another or himself often ends in turmoil, chaos, destruction. You can take the United States for example. We are involved in every major war, and that's because we as Americans love that sense of control. We love to be in other people's business because we want to control it. We feel like we have an opinion. We feel like our stance matters. And not only that, we feel like our way is the only right way. And if you ain't on board with us, well, then you're wrong. In recovery, I don't believe that. I don't believe in a right and wrong aspect of recovery. I believe we're past that. I believe right and wrong was a long time ago. Now we're dealing with the problem. Now we're creating a solution. We're not focused on the problem anymore, whatever that problem may be. A lot of people come into recovery with psychological traumas. A lot of people come with physical illness. And what happens is it's a deterioration of the brain through addiction, and now you have a clinical illness. You know what I'm saying? Like, you have something really wrong with you. Me, I suffer from co-occurring psychiatric substance abuse disorder. I have psychological traumas that fueled my addiction, and through my addiction, I've jacked up my brain and I've jacked up my body, and so now I'm looking for solutions. Like, I don't care about the problem anymore. Like, I want to fix it. I want to fix it, and I want to fix it for life. I want to put this into remission to where it's not a problem in my life anymore, to where people don't see me for the person I used to be. I want people to see me for the man I am today. And the man I am today is a very loving, compassionate person, and I am willing to just about get out there for anybody who is willing to better their own life. And so I'm saying that I do not believe in a forced recovery. And there's many reasons for it. You know what I'm saying? In my addiction, I was very chaotic. I wanted to put my hands into every situation. I did not seek help. Why? Because I didn't believe there was a problem. I thought I could handle it. You know what I mean? I didn't I didn't go into programs. I didn't do these things because I had my own self-seeking motives at the time, and like they were never, good motives. You know what I'm saying? Like they were always, materialistic. It was always to soothe a pain. It was always to numb a trauma. You know what I mean? It was never to fix the problem. I was always trying to put a band-aid on a knife wound. And what happens with that is I was always bleeding out. Like I never stopped bleeding out. And so the problem never got fixed. It just gradually got worse. It festered, it blistered, it got infected, and now it's left this huge scar on my life to where you have to hit, like what they call a rock bottom. You know what I'm saying? Like your rock bottom is like when you cannot take no more. When you have finally accepted the fact that your way doesn't work and you need help, and what you see with people, especially coming into the rooms, okay, like I've been in the rooms now. I go to meetings every single day. I'm a part of recovery every single day. Like I don't let up on it. I stay very much embellished in it, and I don't knock any path to recovery. Like I'm not going to downplay anyone's approach. I believe there's a multiple pathway approach. You know what I'm saying? And I believe that multiple pathways should be optional to people, for the reason of what works for you may not work for me. You know what I mean? But what they do is they create these rooms that works for the multitude. Okay. Well, what I've seen is people who are forced into recovery, let's say through treatment centers, let's say through probation departments, parole boards, whatever outside CPS, whatever entity is forcing you to come into recovery, what I see is a very low quality of life or of happiness to be there. There's not a lot of gratitude. There's almost an instant resentment that they have to be in that room. Usually it involves a lot of anger. It's they're pissed that they have to be there. But what you see when they come in on their own volition, it's their own free will, their own choice. You see a complete flip side to that. You see gratitude, you see love, you see compassion, you see people really getting involved. You see people getting out of self and willing to help other people. And so that right there tells you, what I'm saying, that controlling someone and forcing them to do something outside of what they're willing to do, what that does is that creates a very temporary fix. Okay. Like, and I see this too a lot. People coming out of treatment centers. Well, I think it's like 8 out of 10 people almost instantly relapse coming out of a treatment center. Almost instantly. Because they get forced into these programs, and they're not finding help because it's so one-sided, one-directional. You have to do it this way. We're all built different. You know what I'm saying? The way you can handle somebody may not be the way you can handle me. And the way you can handle me, you can't handle somebody else that way. So it's very important to, find a balance. You know what I'm saying? Like you have to find a balance. You have to find an even keel with someone. And you have to find, a process that works for you. There's many different approaches to recovery. And so I'm a firm believer in that. But, more important than the pathway is the support system. These pathways, that's what they are. They're support systems. There's people in place to help you, guide you through a recovery that is doable for you. And another thing that controlled recovery brings is it makes it to where we can't use our own creative mind. So in a one-sided approach, you're not adaptable. And in life situations change all the time. And you have to be able to adapt. You have to be able to evolve. You have to be able to, recognize the situation and how you can approach it and how you can handle it. In a one-sided recovery, you're only thinking one side fix all. You know what I'm saying? And it doesn't work that way. You know what I mean? You have to be willing to think broader. You have to have a greater understanding, and be able to look at things through different perspectives, because different things are going to happen throughout your life. It's not going to be the same problem over and over and over again. You're going to have multiple problems. You're going to have a lot of problems. And it's the tools that we use that are given to us to help combat those problems is how we are going to be able to come through this. So it's very important that, if one way of recovery doesn't work for you, seek out another one. You know what I'm saying? And ask people. Don't be too prideful to ask for help. There's lots of people that want to help. For me, I was a very prideful person, and I literally had to go through some of the worst moments of my life. You know what I mean? And really bad things happened in my life before I was willing to adopt, recovery concepts and really start looking at my life and noticing that the more control I wanted to have over everything, the less control I actually had on everything. I didn't really see a whole lot of that. But I have seen that almost in every sense that I have created my own chaos in life, So what another thing control does, it creates a lot of frustration, People like to, and I see this a lot with people who've got some years under their belt, they get very haughty. They get very entitled and very prideful, and so they like to tell people that they're wrong. You're not doing it right because you're not doing it the way I did it. And almost every time I want to come unglued, and it's very hard for me to keep my mouth shut when I do stuff, when I hear stuff like that, because people aren't built the same way. I've heard some people talk really bad to other people. And I'm looking at them like, boy, bring that my direction. You're going to have your hands full real quick. Because I do believe that there needs to be a mutual respect. And I do feel like just because of the way you think about a situation and the way I think about a situation doesn't make me right and you wrong, or you wrong and me right. We just see things differently. We grew up different. We have different ideals. We have different morals. We have different values. We're different people altogether. You know what I'm saying? God built all of us different. So just because we can, disagree about something doesn't make us wrong about it. I think that the ultimate goal of recovery is to really, we're looking for fulfillment. We're looking for clarity. We're looking for peace. That's one thing I have found in my life, and I am extremely grateful for, is that I have a peace in my life today that I have never had before. And I'm happy. When I came into recovery, I didn't know how to talk to people, or be involved in conversation, because all I knew was drugs. All I knew was being locked up. All I knew was, messing up in life. So when I got sober, it made it very hard for me to become part of social groups. It made it very hard for me to even have conversations with my parents. I think there was a lot of times when I would get, in a room with my family, and they'd all be having these great conversations about, places they've been and stuff they're doing. And here's me just coming out of jail, and I had, I'm gripping because I'm withdrawing, and I don't want to talk about that stuff with my family, and I know they don't want to hear about it because it takes the whole mood of things down. So what I do is I wouldn't talk. I wouldn't talk at all because I had nothing to contribute to the conversations. And I think a lot of times my parents would look at me and they would think I was angry or upset or ungrateful or like my mood was just off. And it wasn't that. I just didn't know how to reconnect. You know what I'm saying? When you spend so much time in, you know, addiction, it's a complete detachment. It's a detachment from yourself. It's a detachment from your family and those around you. And so when you get sober, you really don't know yourself. You don't know who you are. And you spend so much time away from your family, you really don't know who your family is either. You know? And, and so that's hard when you're reattaching those damaged, you know, connections with family and friends. There's like it's very weird, but you know, the longer you stay in it, the longer the longer you remain teachable. I'll put it that way. If you stay in recovery and you stay teachable and willing to learn, then the answers do come. You know, you stop seeking so much self-seeking motives. You know, a lot of times people, you know, they get too involved in what they want, you know what I mean, and how they want to do things and the way it should go. And we are so quick to tell somebody when they're wrong. I mean, we are so fast to say, no, you're not doing it right. You're not doing it right. No, throw that shit out the window. We're going to do it like this. You know, and what that happens is it creates a resentment. It creates frustration. Sometimes it can create conflict. I know if somebody talks to me and they talk to me very disrespectfully, guess what? Like, it's coming right back at you. Full speed. And I don't care. You know what I mean? Like, I do respect everyone, and I expect that same respect given to me, no matter if you agree or disagree with me. I can agree to disagree with you just fine. You know what I'm saying? And nothing has to happen, you know. But one thing you don't want to do is you don't want to deter someone from what they're trying to do. You don't want to talk them out of their goals. You know what I'm saying? All you really want to do is try to be a support system for them. You want to help them. How are they going to accomplish what they want to accomplish? You know, provide insight. A lot of times, my best way to provide insight is to share my past experiences with people. You know what I'm saying? The best way for me to tell you how to do something is to tell you how I failed at doing it. You know what I'm saying? And that's the truth. You know what I'm saying? Like that is a truth. I have failed at a lot of things in life. But I almost feel like that's my biggest success. My biggest success was all my failures. You know what I mean? Because now I know a way to go that works for me. And I feel like I have something to contribute. You know what I'm saying? In addiction, we have nothing to contribute to nobody. We have nothing positive going on. You know, it's all those self-seeking motives. You know, but life doesn't get better. It stays in this same monotonous, dredge, you know, miserable life. And we hate life. And we just want it to end. And we don't care about things like love and compassion. It's all about greed and anger and what I want and how I want it done. That doesn't work. You can't force recovery on people, you know? And even though, like, some recovery programs do better than others, like, I disagree with, like, how they say, like, this way works and the other ones don't. I disagree with that. I think it more or less boils down to a person's free will to choose. You know what I'm saying? It comes down to a choice. Are you willing to fix your life? Are you willing to go through whatever is necessary? Are you willing to fail? Are you willing to put yourself out there? Are you willing to become vulnerable? Are you willing to face all your fears? Man up, face them all down, and become a new person. And that's a scary concept, especially coming out of recovery or coming out of addiction. Because you're in a world you know nothing about. I was in a world I knew nothing about when I came into recovery. And I felt very stupid. I felt very vulnerable. I felt very open to attack from you know, people who never gone through it, or people who had a bunch of years of sobriety, they intimidated me. They intimidated me. And so that in itself is hard to face. You know what I'm saying? Those outside judgments, those outside stigmas, and we try to, you know, veer away from that kind of stuff, but it's a real thing. It's out there. It happens. You have social circles. People always have their favorites. You know what I'm saying? They always have their little cliques, their little, groups that they like to hang out in. And unfortunately, what that does is that pushes those people who are vulnerable. It pushes those people who are a little bit not so strong-willed, a little weaker-minded. It pushes those people out because they don't feel involved. So it's good to put yourself out there and learn as much as you can. Be teachable. Be willing to learn. Be willing to listen. And contribute. When you have something to contribute, that is a great feeling. That will bring you gratitude. When you can contribute something to a group, when you can contribute to helping someone else out, when you can contribute to a greater good other than yourself, that's a great feeling. That brings gratitude in itself. That brings a whole different kind of joy of life. You know what I mean? Like, I love being a part of groups. When I go to groups, or when I go to rooms, or I go to events, I love being a part of it. You know what I mean? And I'm not always the topic of discussion. I'm very rarely the topic of discussion. And actually and truthfully, I really don't like to talk a whole lot. I hear enough of my own voice doing these podcasts, and so I like to hear other people's opinions. I like to hear other people's approaches, how they did things, what they're going through and how they're solving their problems, because it gives me a greater insight. It gives me a bigger understanding of how I can be more effective in my goals and what I want to do. You know what I mean? It also, and I feel accepted. I feel accepted amongst my peers. My faith is very grounded in God, but my higher power is knowledge. My higher power is definitely knowledge. I try to educate myself as best I can, and educate others as best I can, with following a belief system that I strongly believe in, and I believe that there's multiple ways to recovery. However, I do not believe in a forced recovery, and I do not believe in a controlled recovery. I believe it has to be your choice. It has to be a choice by you that says, I will not live like this anymore. I will fix my life. I will make something better of my life. And I don't care what anybody has to say, or all that's behind me. You know what I'm saying? All my dirt, all my trash, everything I've done in life is behind me. I can't go back and fix none of it. What's done is done. In other words, it's history. You know what I mean? You can't change it. So why put energy into something you can't change? I would rather put all my energy and all my focus into today and tomorrow. Because what's done is done. I can't change none of that. I can't change none of that. So when you're able to have that moment of clarity, and when you're able to understand that concept, that simple concept, you're going to be able to find a lot of growth in that, because you can actually work through just about all your traumas. You can work through all your everything, your motives. You can work through just everything if you focus on the future and stop focusing on the past. Most of our problems come from focusing on our past, from dwelling in our past, from dwelling on the mistake. The mistake is done. You can't go back. You can't change it. You can't fix it. You have to accept it. Accept it and move on. That's how you have to live your life. And that's what recovery teaches us. It teaches us to live life on life's terms. It teaches us to grow. And what I have found in recovery is a great sense of peace. And I am very thankful for my peace today. And I'm very grateful for all of y'all. I'm glad y'all tuned in. Y'all have a great weekend.